As you know, on the last tape we finished up all the silver, what we hoped was going to be all the silver. But you always have one or two little spots like this, and you can see the dry spots on here. A couple of them up here anyway. So what I do is I'm going to basically spend some of this day laying out the paint job and make what I'll call a paint schedule. While this is drying, we have some stuff over here drying. The main frame is drying up by the heating vent. Everything's kind of cooking along. So what I want to do, I want to get out the artist pad and some colored pencils and start deciding what we're going to do as far as a paint job goes. Well, actually, no matter what model you're making, it's always a good idea to start off with this little 3 views, shrunk down 3 views here. Joe, of course, made these. In fact, I think he even has the improvised, revised. Okay, so what we did in the past, and Joe and I have both done, is make up several sketches of what we wanted to be tentative paint jobs. But what we also want to do is we want to take out a sheet of paper and put a schedule. Now the purpose of a schedule, and I'll keep this off camera, the purpose of a schedule is you go through a little mock-up of the paint job. And it doesn't matter if this is a cardinal or if this is a who knows what, you know. What I would say is you always would like to start with the lightest colors first. In this case, we know the invasion stripes are going to be black and white, and I'm just going to sketch these in kind of tentatively here. So I have a white one, this would be a black one. And this is not to make a pretty picture, this is just to go through the scheduling to see. Now the white, I would have this white, and this white, and this part of the roundel would be white. So what this would mean is, I also would have a bar back here of white. I'm trying to pick out, it's always easiest to do the lightest color first. You wouldn't want to paint the black stripe and paint the white on top. And I really wouldn't want to backmask for the amount of distance. We're only really going to have 1 or maybe 1.5 of the invasion stripes black. So it almost doesn't pay to backmask it. So step 1 is going to be, and I'll bring out the little schedule, is the white bands. Now in this case, the white bands also let me pick this up at the same time. So when I mask this off, I'll really be masking the roundel and that stripe off all in one shot. I'll also have to backmask or mask this little stripe here. So again, the idea is once I have white in the gun, I'd like to paint the white. And because it's the lightest color, I'd like to get that done first. Now I also have to lay out, and of course this I have to lay out with patterns. Making a barber pole here, white, black, white, black. Okay, the invasion stripes, and Joe and I, well I did anyway, right from the onset I knew I wanted invasion stripes. So looking at this I can see I want to paint this whole band white. So what I'll do is paint this band and this band white. Now there's a couple of things for figuring this out. If I was to paint the whole plane the camouflage color and then combine paint this white and then black, I'm going to have paint on top of paint on top of paint. I'm really struggling to keep the finish as light as possible. These bands are probably the one exception to the rule. The one part of the plane that will have more than one coat of paint is going to be the black and the invasion stripes. But anyway, and these will be on the bottom too. So there's no point in even fooling around here. But anyway, if I know ahead of time, I have a band, and a band, and a little piece to paint. And of course the radiators will have wherever they wind up being on the bottom. The point is, figure out what you want to do first. So the first thing in the schedule is the white bands. That's going to be the first thing that we do, is get the white bands painted when we actually go to the plane. We're going to mask off the white bands, estimate how far out they go. On the bottom, I believe I got to check this out, the roundels on the bottom have a white spot. We'll have to see if we're going to try to backmask that at the same time. But again, if we do it up here, the object is the colors. I want to paint the white first, if possible. That also lets me bring the white over the silver, which gives the best coverage. So the second thing on my schedule is the black bands. That means, and that should cover real easy, the black will be the second color. Now this is just, the idea of doing this is to take like a little dry run through the paint job and see. Because you never know when you're all finished, oh geez, if I just would have backmasked that, I could have done that, I could have done this, I could have. It's always easy to pretend you're painting a plane. Go through a little dry run on this. I've done this so many times with Cardinals and with, I know Midgley has done it, and I know Adamusco's done it. Figure this all out ahead of time. Walt Russell in Washington used to be real good at making up the little sketches of his paint job before he ever went out and did it. Now what we may want to do, on the bottom roundels, the center is red. I may want to make the red, and I don't know this yet, I'm still doing my dry run. On the top they're red and blue, but on the bottom there's a band of white. So what I may want to do is paint this whole circle white, and then just paint the red on top of it. Again, I'm going to think about this. I know I need a little red up here. If I remember right, the red is on. I'll have to check the colors. Believe me, what I'm doing is just trying to make a little dry run here. Now I can figure if I go through the paint job and I do that, the red, take out my schedule, I can also see and I'll have this to look at while I'm laying this out. Now I know the next logical step would be the blue on the rudder. Again, a sloppy drawing. There'll be blue on the outside of this roundel. This is not done correctly, I know, don't holler at me. Again, this is just a dry run, and this would be blue. Top roundels wouldn't have the white. So by envisioning this and by looking at it, okay, that looks like that would be the next thing I'd want to schedule in, would be the blue. And of course, this isn't something you have to stick to like the Bible. This is just a dry run through to just see how it is that you really want to do this. Okay, we have several colors of camouflage, and we may be fine-tuning those colors as we go along, but just to simulate this, what we would want to do is get one of the camouflage colors on. And again, the choices are, we could airbrush the edges, that would save a lot of backmasking, or we can do hard edges. I've seen Spitfire pictures with the edges both ways, airbrushed like a blended edge or a rough edge. I've also seen so many different colors of camo that it's ridiculous. In the case we have, I have like a light gray-green and a dark kind of an olive drabby green. But just to simulate this out, let's just pretend we wanted to do this. Okay, and then would be the same thing out on the wing. And of course we'll make this a lot fancier when it actually comes down to it. But it's a lot easier to sketch this stuff out, and just when you come up with, it's not only useful for coming up with what you think is going to be a real good drawing, you know, a paint job, or some like Dave likes these real exotic paint jobs. What it's good for too is to lay out the sequencing. Sequence out the whole thing ahead of time, just to get a rough idea. Now, if I was to do that, I would just put here camo. Now the color blue, we still have two choices. We still might go with the target toe, which is a yellow bottom. Again, this is just to lay this out. So I could then put in here, instead of camo, bottom. Since I don't know if I'm going to be doing a yellow bottom or a light blue bottom, That gives you a rough idea of just how I would lay out the paint job and what I would come up with for what I hope would be one way of laying this paint job out in a rational, simplified way. So, and this is, believe me, when this is done, this is going to be an exotic paint job. This is going to be just as much work as doing Strega or Tsunami or any of these straight line guys. But at least I'll have a starting point, and that starting point should be a big help. Now, these are just some of the ideas that Joe's laid out for tentative paint jobs. This looks like the one he was working on, the Recon version, which is an all-blue version. The Navy one, which is, I assume, yellow and blue. And again, on and on and on and on. Now, I notice he just did some letter sets up here, too, to make it even more realistic. I think this is the one he affectionately calls How Now Brown Cow. Oh, no, this is the cow. But anyway, the point to all this, if you figure out ahead of time what you really want to do, it's like I was explaining to somebody the other day, if you're going to spend all this time and energy to do something like this, a project like this, another hour or two with the sketch pad is a really good investment. Don't cheat yourself. Don't go running off half-cocked. Here's one that looks almost like the one thing I left out is the yellow on the roundels. That'll probably be the last thing. But again, the more you think about it, make up a plan, make up a schedule, you'll always be way ahead of the game. I had a color paint that I actually bought. I used this photo here to purchase the paint. I think, but when I look in the can, this is a little bit darker. So again, final blending. This is the, and I'm just looking for the color relationship here. The green and brown, the green and gray. The green and brown was what they originally, as well, if I have my history correct. In the beginning of the war, they were camoing them brown and green because they were basically over land. And as the war went on, they were camoing them more of a gray-blue and a green because they were camoed to be over water. Now, I've been looking at some of it, and there are so many varieties of roundels. You can see the ones on the wing here. There's no yellow in the middle of them. These roundels, the fuselage ones, have yellow. Some of these, this is for the Royal Navy. Again, I'm trying to do my homework here, figure out just what the roundels should look like. Now just look at this, some of the Squadron Markings. American, British, more British. This is the one Joe likes. Royal Navy. So many different, you have to really do your homework here and figure out exactly what it is, which one you want to simulate. There are a lot of them. Now this is the look I particularly like, with the invasion stripes going all the way to the rudder. They start at the canopy and they go all the way to the rudder. That's the look I'm looking for. Now here's a picture with the, you can get an idea of the roundels, the invasion stripes. Again, this is why I have so many books and pamphlets here and pictures and sketch pads and everything. Because I really want to have all the choices in front of me when I lay this paint job out. And you can see those invasion stripes go almost to the roundels. I mean, that's when Joe first brought the picture here. In fact, let me get up over here. When Joe first brought the picture, I thought he was crazy. I thought he had the wrong picture or something. Those invasion stripes go almost to the roundels. Now, while I did off camera, I did a couple more touch-ups on some of the little silver parts, and they're drying up now. And what I wanted to show is, boy, I'm still sick. Before I start any paint job, I like to take out the spray gun. Now I'm going to leave the gun that has the silver in it. Of course, if you don't have a lot of guns, you can't do this. This gun, I'll try to leave the silver in for the duration of the plane, just in case I need to touch up. Then I have the gun that I normally use for color. I'm not going to use that yet, but I have one gun that I try to use just for white. I never put anything in here but white. But I haven't sprayed white in a year. So what I'm going to do is take this gun completely apart now. I want to soak it in thinner, clean it, spray some thinner through it, get it all cleaned up and ready. Because what I don't want to be is in the middle of this, I'm going to mix all fresh paint. There's a couple of golden rules here. If you're building up a ringmaster or something, well, this won't be appropriate, but I've really got a big chunk of my life into this Spitfire, and I don't want to, in the middle of a paint job, have a big glob of something come spitting out of here or whatever. So what I'm going to do is get me up a coffee can, fill it up with thinner halfway, rip this gun apart, let it soak overnight, clean it, whatever, mix up fresh white paint. Remember, I have all those colors to mix. I want to mix the fresh white paint, run a little test on I have a spare flap over there I want to use, run a test that I'm getting just the right amount of pigment in there before I actually go and mask off the plane and paint it. Now the reason for that is I don't want to leave the masking tape on the plane any longer than necessary. I want to put the masking tape on, have the gun, the paint ready, spray it, let it dry overnight, pull the tape off. I don't want to have tape sitting on there for 2 weeks while I'm cleaning the gun. So this is just that scheduling thing that I always talk about. I'm trying to use up time that I normally wouldn't be able to use for much else to get the guns clean, get the paint mixed, so that when I actually get to tape the plane off, I'm ready to go. Now, if you're going to clean a gun from scratch, this has probably been sitting here almost a year. It's a good idea. Take some old thinner, mix some retarder in with it, get about half of the cup, put the pressure up to 70, 80 pounds, it doesn't matter, and just run the thinner through the gun. That'll get the internal part of it pretty clean in a hurry. Let the thinner all come out. Then I'll pull the spray gun apart, soak it in a can of, I have a big coffee can over there. Let it sit for a couple hours. Overnight is even better. Wipe all the parts down, and then we'll mix up the paint. Actually, I can clean up the other gun too, as long as I'm going to do this. Spraying thinner through the gun before you run a job is always a good idea. Now, as you're spraying it through, you can move the adjustment knobs in and out. That'll let more of the thinner go into the moving parts. Move the trigger in and out, almost to the point where it doesn't open. There you go. By the way, here's a good tip. If you, like I, have already bought a big 5-gallon can of that V3608S, this is a good time to use it up. A little bit of retarder will help clean up and loosen up all the old paint. Now, it's very tempting, at least it is for me, to try to save money by not using the right amount of thinner. Clean a gun. You always think, oh, I can save a couple dollars worth of thinner. I'll just leave the gun dirty. Well, in my case, one of the things I do is I leave paint in the gun all year long because I'm normally using it every week or 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. In the case of the last season, I haven't painted anything. At least I haven't painted anything white in quite a while. So this stuff is, you can see inside, it's kind of glocky and everything. So just take and soak everything right in thinner. Put your hands right in there. Kiss those hands goodbye. Take the bottom nut off the cap. And these are all little simple. I probably have shown this on a tape a couple times already. The cheap guns like this come right apart. I mean, you're really kind of foolproof how they come apart. It's not a big deal. Come on, puppy. Just keep coming. Dump them right in the thinner. Now, in my case, I have other work to do today, so I won't even think about this. Just pull this right apart, let it soak, and when I get back into the shop tonight, most important parts of the gun to clean are what's on the outside here. Drop them all right in. fact, this I'm going to soak right in that way. Let that soak for the rest of the day while I'm out doing my business. And you can even think about putting a lid on it. Now, one other thing I'm going to try to do here, have a can of Sig White. Now you have a lot of choices here. You can use Sig Clear Light Coat. By the way, all Sig colored paint is made from light coat. This is a misnomer on here. It's made from light coat. You have two choices. You can put Sig Light Coat in a jar and add white pigment, or you can, in this case, I bought Sig White. It already has some pigment in it, and I'll add some pigment to it. Now the question is always, white especially and yellow, how much pigment do you add? Well, depending on what you're going to cover, it would vary. Since we're going to be covering something that's already silver, the idea is we really won't need a whole lot of extra pigment. We'll probably put 4 ounces into a can like this. This is 16, I believe. I just want to double check. Yeah, because they always downsize this stuff to begin with. 16, so that would mean 25% extra is going to be pigment. Okay? So it gives you a rough idea. Now I noticed some of those cans of pigment that I bought, there's like 60% pigment in the light blue. It's really a lot. I ought to go look at the numbers so I have some accurate numbers. But anyway, I do this by feel. White, yellow, you add the extra pigment. There's no secret to doing this. Pretty much all of the top flyers that I know of have tried this and used it successfully. The only mistake you can make is to add way too much pigment. If you happen to just go and add 70% pigment, the paint is not going to stick well and it's going to dry looking like sandpaper. Well, you're not going to get that good adhesion. Now, I need a gallon jar. I'll mark the jar too, by the way. Always try to pour it without pouring half on your shoe or something. This is the formula that I've used. It works almost every time. Very few exceptions. Now this is 3608 Estena. You can see there's still, most of the pigment is still in the bottom. I've mixed the can just as if I was mixing a can of paint here. This would be the minimum amount of thinner that you'd need. We're probably going to add a little more. Stir it up because you know that pigment's down at the bottom. Now Sig is especially cheap with the pigment. If you don't add pigment, you wind up putting 50 coats of white on. And in the past, many people have ruined a good stuntship just by not putting enough pigment in the paint. White is the hardest color to cover, that's for sure. I put the lid back on the can. And I won't repeat this over and over and over, but for the white, this is an important concept. Another concept, you always want to paint the light colors first. I might have mentioned this when I was putting the other little dissertation on the video. You really don't want to go ahead, paint a plain black, red, blue, and then try to paint white over it. You'll die. You'll need 1,000 coats. So I know this might be a little boring to sit through, but I think the majority of the people that have gotten good information from the tape, this is the kind of information they need. Once you've gone through this once, you will never go back to just using ordinary paint. And I want to just go, I'm only going to go through this once. I want to have all my paint mixed, so I probably today will not get enough time to get started on a paint job. But, look at this, half's going on the floor here. No wonder I have a newspaper down. Okay. Now you can see the bottom of the can is kind of empty. Okay. You're kind of finished with that. Now you have a mix that's 50-50. Now, they tell you, if you ask, they tell you, oh yeah, there's fisheye killer and Flexol and dope. Yeah? Well, I'll tell you what I do is I play it safe and make sure, because I never know from day to day what the hell is in this dope. I just put a shot of that in, no specific amount, a spoonful, 2 spoonfuls. And this is the fisheye killer. 1 drop of fisheye killer in the whole mix. Now that's ready to go. That's absolutely ready. It's going to be on the thick side now, but we haven't added the pigment yet. Get this mixed up first. The whole key to getting good coverage on white or yellow is get the mixture right. The mixture right and a clean gun, and you'll laugh. You'll say, so easy, it's unbelievable. If you don't get it right, it's a nightmare trying to paint something white. Now you can see just by, let me look at this on the macro. Just by looking at this cap, you can see how pissy thin this is. Christ, there's no coverage there. It's terrible. And that's what, if you were to try to paint with this, and this is 50-50, this is a little thicker than I normally like to paint. If you were to paint with this, you're looking at 6-8 coats of white, and it'll still be gray. It won't even be white. So, okay, now this is a gallon can. It's roughly $100 for a can like this. Sometime a little more, you never know. Prices go up around here at will. Anyway, I paid as much as $130 for a can of this stuff. Anyway, this is a gallon can of raw white pigment. Now, obviously, an average person or a modeler, this would be a lifetime supply. So what I do is I supply it in 4-ounce jars. A 4-ounce jar is usually enough to paint one stunt ship. So first thing I'll do is fill up one 4-ounce jar, add that 4-ounce jar into there, and that'll hopefully get me in the ballpark. I know I'm going to be a little thick. I'll be adding a little thinner. If it's humid, a little retarded. But that's a ballpark number. That gets me in the ballpark that I know I'm going to be close on my first shot when I put it into the gun. Now, I always shake the hell out of this stuff. Just like paint, some of it settles to the bottom. Now, I've made a couple of mistakes in my life. If you just happen to want to buy a gallon of this stuff, be my guest. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, I found out that once you take the lid off of these cans, they never really seal the way they should. So what I do is poke 2 screwdriver holes in a gallon can and use duct tape to seal them, and that seems to work the best of any way I've tried. And if you have any gallon cans, that's a good way to do it. I want to add roughly 4 ounces, so I'm really just using this for a measuring cup. And this is just raw white pigment. Now here's the key thing. There is no set amount. There's no such thing as, well, you just put this, and this together to work for everybody. Depending on the temperature, the humidity, the pressure you spray at, you might, or if you're trying to go over dark colors, you might want to add 2 jars to a mix like this. I'm going to start with just 1 jar, and if I have to, I'll add a little more, but I'll be very cautious. I would like this to cover. Remember, I'm trying to keep the weight down. The idea is I don't want to put a quart of white on here to get 5 invasion stripes. And the more the plane that's white, the more of a saving there is by doing this. Now, as I said, I reseal up the can with duct tape right over the holes. Reason for this is, in the past, I've had these what amount to be very expensive cans of paint. The lid hasn't sealed well, and they've kind of dried up over the summer when you're not using them every day. So I've been real careful about finding a way of sealing the can. An even better way would be if you had gallon jug jars, but orange juice jars, I don't know, there's probably a better way. Anyway, that's sealed up now until the next customer wants a thing of white pigment, and I always mix it fresh. I don't fool around. Now you'll notice I've marked it Spitfire 3608S, so I know what thinner is in here, and whenever I denote ready to spray, it means it's got the thinner, the Flexol, and the fisheye in it. Now, this is probably a lot more material than we'll need, but I'm sure John DeTavio or Jimmy or George or somebody's going to need some white paint, and we'll have it ready to spray. So it's always good to mix a little more than you need, but it's not good to mix it 5 years ahead of time. I've even used paint that's a year or 2 old. I don't know. But on a project like the Spitfire, I want all brand new paint, all brand new thinner, all brand new everything. I don't want to wind up with used tires on here on my Lincoln Continental, so to speak. All right, now this for sure is going to be too thick. For sure, because we've added 4 ounces of pigment that's very thick to a mixture that's already thick. So a rough starting point on this might be 8 ounces more or thinner, but I don't know. I have to run a test. So I'm going to finish cleaning that gun, see if that gun is done soaked, and oh boy, what language. Anyway, this is information a lot of people can't really figure out. It's hard to get it from magazines. It just seems like it's too lengthy to put in a magazine article. one video can help you get an idea on just about what this is like, what you should be looking for. And as we go through the spraying of the plane, I'll try to get as many little tips, just like Alan Beers had mentioned to me, little tips, little things that you can use right away. Now, if you're painting colored paint, one of the things you can do, and this is a Walt Prey trick, is save all your old light bulbs and fluorescent lights for paint test, because you can see how opaque the paint is when you paint a light bulb. Right, now just by looking at this, I can tell it's too thick, so I'm going to start by adding, and this is roughly 8 ounces more of 3608S. This should fill a gallon jar. And this will probably be, in fact I didn't get all 8 in there, probably 7. There's not a formula here, because I'm painting in very cold weather. What there is, though, is when I run a little spray test, I can tell by looking at the spray pattern if I'm close or way out in left field. Again, shake the hell out of it, and then we'll get our gun clean. I know this might be boring, but for every person out there that's bored, there's somebody who's picking up valuable information that'll save them hundreds of hours of disappointment and work. And you only have to see this once. This is not something you have to see over and over and over. Once somebody helps you mix the paint the first time, Harold Price showed me this once. My little eyes and ears were all perked up. I went home. The next time I painted, it was Bing. But if nobody showed me, I'd be doing this hundreds and hundreds, figuring out what do you do now, how do you do this. Well, the hobby is going to die unless somebody passes some of this information on. I mean, I'm not going to live forever. The only guy that's going to live forever is Steve DeJulia from drinking all that Strega wine. Hey, by the way, DeJulia, just to mention to you, that Strega wine bottle is up in a wine rack up on those shelves. Karen put the rest of the books up there yesterday. It's starting to really look nice. Anyway, I'm going to finish cleaning the gun, and we're going to be ready to run a spray test. Now, the biggest mistake I've seen people do when they clean a gun, biggest single mistake, they clean the outside of the gun, but not the inside. And I guess for a part of my life, too, I figured that was important. Really isn't important at all. I just do this because I have a can of thinner handy here. I can look up in there and see I still haven't gotten the last little. There's Nixon again. All right, President Nixon, I'm coming. Let me just put the gun down. I guess, without saying, one of the most important things to get clean is inside the cup. Get all the old Glock out. That looks pretty good. Again, because this is a white gun and we keep it for white, if you have one dream come true, it would be to have a minimum of 3 guns. And these guns are the ones I get, the cheap ones you get from Tower Hobby or from India. I don't know how much they are now. They used to be $19. The Badgers or whatever the hell. I don't even know what brand this is. Binks, Badger, whatever. Anyway, the idea is, if you have one for clear, and you never put anything but clear in there, and one for white, never put anything but white, well, the rest of the colors will kind of cancel each other out. If you put yellow in a gun that had red that had silver, whatever, they'll kind of all absorb. But white won't. White, you put 1 drop of red in 5 gallons of white and you have pink. And always keep in mind you want to, if there's white in the paint job, you want to paint the white first. The white wants to be underneath and never on top of any other color. That is a tip. It'll save you so much work. Now, of course, one by one, I'm just taking the pieces out, wiping them down, looking through the tubes. If you have nice, clean hands, if you're not used to doing construction work or whatever, you probably will ruin your hands. You might want to wear rubber gloves or whatever. Now, this even though this is bullshit up here, you want to get that air hole clean. So what I want to do is pull this apart. Again, I have 3 or 4 other guns, and maybe while I'm doing this, I'll clean a couple of them up so I can keep the white in the gun and use another gun for, I got to do the black. That's why I made up that schedule. Black next, and then red for the roundels and whatnot. Good idea to make up a schedule. These are just ideas that'll help you figure this all out. Again, this is just the shit. If you leave it in here, if it doesn't want to come off, get an old toothbrush and put some retarder in, or acetone, and then do it outside. Don't breathe a lot of acetone in. And acetone will really eat your hands up good too. Okay, so that's basically the end. I'm just going to put this gun back together, and then we'll run a little spray test and see how close we were on our formula. Now, you need something to spray. A light bulb is good. In my case, I have old flaps. I have cans, jars. Jars are good. But you need something to spray, something that's not going to absorb the paint, a can for instance. The idea of all of that is, by the way, this is the little hole. I always have a pin right by the bench so you can dig the pin in there and get the last little bit of the goop out. And because we're using white, we don't have to go crazy, but if there was red in this gun now and we were going to do white, I would spend a half an hour cleaning the gun. Because one drop of red gets in a can of white and forget about it. I found that out doing Tsunami, that when you tried to paint anything on top of that red, forget it. Now just one, I want to mention this now just so I don't forget it early on in the program. You could be using acrylic lacquer or Sig Dope. The advantage of using Sig Dope, I think over the silk span, it stays more pliable over the course of maybe 10 years. I have planes like the Green Cardinal that have been lacquered over silk span, and yes, they have stood up a couple of years, but as years go by, it tends to be brittle and crack. Sig Dope, I think, will last for our lifetime. I mean, I'm not going to live another 20 years, so I really don't care. Whoever inherits these planes, Midgley will have to figure it out. But I'm trying, because it's a silk span plane, I want to try to have all Sig Dope or mostly Sig Dope. If it was a foam wing plane with no open bays, I would be using all acrylic lacquer. That's the way I define which should be used. Pretty straightforward, just reverse the whole assembly sequence on the gun. By the way, another good tip is if you leave the tip off, every time you're done painting, if you put a baby food jar or retarder and throw the tip in a retarder, it'll always be clean when you go to use it. This piece here is the single most important piece to keep clean because of those little tiny vent holes in the front. Different guns have different kind of venting. Now another tip is the little vent hole. Let me show this up as people. I know this might be oversimplified for some experts, but there's a little vent hole no matter what kind of spray gun you use. Air has to be able to get back into the cup. Keep that vent hole clean. Keep a pin handy. If that vent hole plugs up, you lose suction and the paint, it'll be just like running out of air pressure. I always want to keep that vent hole toward the back, so when I do the final tightening, I don't want to be going like this and have the paint drip out. Vent hole to the back, then tighten up all the bolts. All of the screws on here. Okay, the tip is the last thing that goes on. Now what I can do just to make positively sure is I'll take a little bit of thinner, maybe 2 ounces of thinner, run it through the gun, make sure the vent hole is open. I take 1 drop of WD-40, 1 drop, don't spray the gun. Put it right on the shaft, work the shaft in a few times, and this gun is ready to do another paint job. I should be ready. I'll just put the paint in and we'll be ready to run a test. And I hope this information, even if you only pick up 1 tip off of watching a whole 2-hour tape, it's worth it. It saves you time and energy in the long run. It makes you have fun instead of frustration. And of course, as you're spraying thinner, work all your adjustments in and out. I start with them out 1.5. This one down all the way, but just so the thinner runs through the whole gun. Now I would suspect, just a gut feeling, I looked at the radio this morning and it's about 18 degrees outside, and I know that paint this thick at 18 degrees probably is going to be too thick, so I'm prepared to add a little thinner if I have to. Just by looking at it, it even looks too thick. You can usually tell by the bubble pattern when it's about right. If it foams on the top, it usually is just about right. Looks like beer with foam. Now see that? We can't get this on the Mac. That really doesn't have any foam. It should have a little more foam, so I'm going to do a little spray test, and then if I have to, add a couple ounces of thinner at a time. Now, the idea is, what I'm doing is adding the thinner to the main batch. So eventually I'll fine-tune that main batch. That main batch will be just perfect. And then I'll have enough to do 2 airplanes. I won't have to worry. I'll write on here how many PSI I was spraying with. Give me a ballpark number. I can paint 2 planes then without any hassle at all. Probably without ever even cleaning the gun again. But if I don't do this, or if I just put paint thinner and go paint and the thing comes out orange, peely, and drooly, and drippy, forget it. this is one of the old flaps to the tweener. I'm cleaning it with M600 just so I have a test piece. I could use light bulbs. A flap is good. This is a good idea, and this is not something that's so off the wall. When you see a crashed plane in a garbage can, it has a half finish on it, halfway decent. Steal a flap, an elevator, or whatever, or steal a whole plane, so that you have something to do testing on. Okay, now I'm cleaning it real good with M600. I want it to be oil and grease free. You can hear it squeaky, and I'll be ready to test. Okay, now don't look at this. This is a fisheye from where I put my thumb before. That's grease. This is what I'm looking for. It's shiny. If it dries shiny, you know you haven't gotten too much pigment in. And a nice feather edge. If this was 80 grit sandpaper out here, forget about it. I want a nice feather edge out here where it's dry and almost no dust out here at all. That's the pattern I'm looking for. You can see what a fingerprint will do to a thing. Well, I didn't clean this much at all. This really should have been sanded and cleaned if you want to do a good test. But this looks real close. In fact, I'm almost convinced I should try this without adding a thinner when I actually go to spray the plane. It is really cold out there. It feels a lot colder than 18 degrees. So I would guess this is ready to go. Now the whole idea of spending this time is so that I have white that'll basically cover in one coat over silver. It covered over purple in one coat. I have enough mixed for more than one plane, more than I need. The gun is clean and ready. Now when I actually, it won't be today, it's not going to be now. When I get the tape off the plane, I get the tape on, spray it, let it dry overnight, and get the tape off. The tape never sits on the plane longer than it has to. Having the gun already mixed with white, the jar is marked. I feel like now I'm ready to begin the paint job on the plane. The only problem is I have to go to the machine shop and do a day of work. But luckily, and the good news, there's bad news and good news. The good news is we may even make some money this week. There's one final thing here is when I'm done with any test like this, I like to mark on a jar or memorize it how many PSI I was spraying with. Now because the temperature varies so much here, this is really irrelevant by quite a bit. I was around 20 when I was painting this, and I try to get it down even lower than 20 if I can. The reason for that is the less pressure I have, the less overspray there'll be. You don't blow paint all over the place. But if I want to spray with a little less pressure, I can add some thinner, reduce the pressure, and I'll probably have a real nice fine spray. It'll really be nice. Now this really dried up nice. There's a couple of things, a couple little indicators that tell you how your spray technique is. Now usually up here, you should have a little bit of overspray, roughness right back here. What happens is the paint is coming down and ricocheting off, and when you spray this way, it's ricocheting off. So usually right in here, it'll be kind of rough. Same thing on the stab. Now I want to show this back here. Let me get this on a macro lens. You'll see it's just a little rough. In fact, I don't know if I can even show this on the macro lens. It's just right there. Just a little on the rough side, but that's out here. Smooth as can be, real nice. Tells me I'm ready for the paint. There's only one little step I want to do. I want to get that little scoop that goes on the bottom, and I may have time to finish this off time. I want to make sure the paint on it is reasonable, and then build that fillet around and retouch up the silver. So that might be all I have time for here today. I don't know. Just one final thing I like to do. This is that part that we painted white. I like to see what kind of adhesion I'm getting. That looks good. Even out by the overspray. So if you can do that with brand new tape, you know you can do it with the thin tape. You know the adhesion is good. You've got a good mix there. Now one final thing you can see. This is that one coat of white over purple. You can see the shine. If that was dull, I know I've got too much pigment in there. Now let me just zero in with the macro lens here and see if I can get it. There's some little dull spots on both sides of the spray pattern where it gets dull, but basically it's shiny in the middle, dull, shiny, dull, shiny. That's telling you you've got a really good head start on the spray pattern. I'm also looking around. This is the point at which I live with it. This looks a little dry. It doesn't have any gloss, but I can see no indication that the next coat of paint isn't going to cover that up. So here I've kind of beat the system. Of all places I need to beat it on the outboard tip. That is absolutely the minimum amount of paint you can have for a substrate. And I'm just trying to walk around here and see any other dry spots, anything that I could pass on as information. That silver looks just about, well, what it is you know you don't have any extra paint. Right here, you know you probably have almost a half a coat, not enough. So you know you've got that micro, thin, fine, and it's nice and tight coat of silver paint on there. Now here's that spray pattern right at the end, what it looks like. This is one of the things that a lot of people, if you know what that spray pattern looks like, you know you're going to be able to dial that in anytime you want, and you're going to be able to adjust it. A little more thinner will make it shiny, more paint and thinner. A little more pigment will make it dull, and when it gets flat though, you know you've gone too far. Now I'm going to do a final fitting onto this scoop. You can see one side the fit is real nice, one side it's okay but not great. So when I actually put this on, I'm going to obviously put this on with epoxy so I have a little time to adjust it and whatever. But the first step is I want to put some sandpaper on top of the fuselage right where this is going to be and get a final fit and try to get out all the high spots off of that. You can even see up here just some of the dry spots. I'm one coat of paint away from having it. But since I'm not worried about it, since I'm going to have to paint that fillet in there anyway, and I'm going to have to sand this area, this whole area is probably going to get painted one more time. Now I'm just going to hold this sandpaper and try to keep this right in the middle, and this will just take out the high spots. I should get the minimum amount of filleting here, especially in the back. That's where I'd really like to get it, have exactly the curve I want. I'm trying not to press. This thing really is delicate. Now you can see I have a perfect curve. Perfect curve there. I'm just going to dress this edge off, mix up some epoxy, and I'll be ready to install. Now I real carefully marked out the spot where I want this to be. I really want to just drop it right down in position. The leading edge of this scoop is just roughly an inch in front of the leading edge, and I went back and forth looking at the scale pictures to try to get it in the most scale location possible. I want to get just the slightest bead of epoxy in there. I don't want to have a big bubble or big fillet that I have to sand out. But on the other token, I don't want any oil getting in there either, so I want this to act almost like a little gasket. That's what I'm taking and painting on just a real fine amount here. And then I'll just tape this in position, let this dry, and I'll work on some other part of the project or whatever while this is drying, because I like to, if possible, get this fillet started. Really getting excited about laying out this paint job, and one of the things I'll have to do off camera is lay most of it out, where I want the roundels, where I want the invasion stripes, and I'll need to, and it's really fun work. It's actually the most fun of all, is looking at all the pictures that we've accumulated and figuring out what actually is going to be the final paint job here. How creative can we be and still have it look like a Spitfire? And with that carefully in position, I got a Q-tip with just a little bit of alcohol. I'm twisting it as I go, then take the dry side, It's just a minimum in there. But actually the fit is so tight I don't even need tape to hold this on. I'll just babysit this until the epoxy kicks off. And then I'll run some thick CA down under there to make what I hope will be a real nice fillet. But I want to make sure that's definitely one of the things I need to make sure that's right in the middle, of course, and that I don't have, any way that oil can work its way in there. Get the last little bit out of there. That should make just a perfect joint. Really nice. Oh, I'm babysitting this anyway. There's still a couple of dry spots on here. Just put a little CA because I'm going to get this all painted in. There's also, while I was putting this up here, I gouged it with my finger. I can fix that gouge since I'm going to re-silver it. Just let that sit. It's drying up nice. I don't even need pins in it. Now here's a tip, and I know you can use this. This is the kind of thing Alan Beers would be proud of. Here's a tip. Well, I've been using little amounts of this stuff, just taking off little spoonfuls. What you have to do at some point in time, imagine this tube, you could do 10,000 airplanes with one tube, is do this. Get a whole bunch of it out, and it clears the nozzle, and you don't get any little rough spots or dry spots in there. Kind of clean that nozzle out, and just shit can this, so you're dealing with some fresh material there. And get the tip back on tight. Now another great trick, I haven't had a resort to doing this, but I used to, is get one of those airtight sandwich bags, because this lid never really seals, and put this in an airtight sandwich bag. It'll even keep it fresher for a long, if you have to store it, especially over the summer. This stuff is just magic, though. It's unbelievable how good this works. And it's almost kicked off. And the whole purpose of putting this on ahead of time, or not putting it on ahead of time, if we had to sand around here while we were sanding the wings and everything, you'd always be bumping into this. This is kind of a vulnerable thing. But now, with most of the silver sanding done, hopefully almost all of it, now I just need to get this area in here and put him good night. It's just an easy way of doing it to get this on at the last minute like this. Just like you have the rudder separate and a lot of these other pieces. Just an easier way of doing this. And any little, even though I've wiped it with Q-tips, still has a little tiny bit of epoxy there. That's baby sitting right on there. Now the fit on this scoop is so tight and so neat. I don't even think I'm going to put a fillet in there. I'm just going to paint red. I'm going to sand this down a little bit because there's a couple of dry spots and there's one on the other side. And I'm just going to paint right over it. I think that it'll be overkill to put a fillet in there. Now the plan is, before I lay out the paint jobs, the roundels, and all the other things, I want to clean all the paint off of the horns and lay the flaps, elevators, and rudder in position so I can start to get a look at what this is going to look like in a mocked up state. I don't want to have it that I'm laying out invasion stripes and I haven't taken into account the look of the flaps or where the roundels are going to go. So the next step, I'll get all this paint off here, and this stuff should shave right off. You never want to put the flaps back on when this has a bunch of paint. What happens, it jams on the tubing and then you got to wiggle it to get it off. So if you kind of keep after this, a little maintenance pays here, and we'll get the flaps just dummied on there. Now while you're working, putting the parts of the plane together, you can start to appreciate a decent cowl fit, and everything starts to look like it belongs there. It really is a nice feeling. You start to see all the quality work you've been doing starts to pay off. Now what I like to do is just take a little walk around here real quick while the plane is in one piece and see if there's anything. I looked here, this was kind of tight on clearance. I gave myself a little more clearance. Just took the re-radius that off. I'm going to sand the bottom yet today before I finish that little spot. There was a little spot around the hatch too I wanted to fix, and this is an ongoing thing. I don't you know, I don't just wait till the end here. Anytime I'm using that green putty, I like to look around. Any other little spots, take care of them right away. Ongoing. So I gotta walk around here. What I want to do, the last thing, I'll take it out in the driveway and stand like the equivalent of 70 feet away and take a look at it and see if it has. It certainly does have the look, real close to the look that I had envisioned when we originally, Joe and I envisioned this project. It really is, I can't tell you, I'm real happy with it so far. This is really looking good. I just try to look, get all the looks, all the angles. I don't know, I think this is pretty close to being a Spitfire and still being a decent performance stunt ship. I really do have high hopes for this. Now I went through another little cycle of touching up. I got that spot by the stab and elevators done, and I got around the scoop here done. I hope that I'm going to let that dry up over the weekend. I got a lot of other stuff to be thinking about, invasion stripes, roundels. Monday session, we're going to have a lot of guests here. I'm having Mike, Andy Lee, and Chris Lully here, so maybe we'll just do some dreaming between now and then about the paint job. Again, Joe has these roundels, and he made me up I'm going to show you some Xerox copies of the roundels. I have those knives from Ed Galler. I'm going to do a lot of playing in the next day or so, try to figure out exactly what I want to do in terms of the roundels. But most important of all, I guess, here is that I've gotten to this point. The silver is in pretty nice shape. There may or may not be a couple other little touch-up spots. One thing I hate about, I mentioned this, don't let yourself get crazy. When the thing is in silver, you get all this silver dust. I don't know what it is. It always looks dirty. But as soon as you paint it, it really doesn't. It really is bullshit until you paint it, and then it looks perfect. Anyway, I'm at a point here where I'm going to pack it in for the night and maybe get some work done with these roundels. I don't know. Got dreaming to do. Today I finished up these bookshelves. I think you saw these on a previous video. Hey, there's that nice angel. Anyway, Spitfire books, Spitfires. This was a nice little project, and now I got all my stuff in order. Now I just noticed one thing here. I had touched this up the other day and hung it up by this heating vent. You can see, well, I've shown this already, but having the heat up in the house, it may be, it may ultimately be to my advantage that we had such a terrible winter, because this paint is drying up neater, harder, and nicer than any paint I've ever had. Especially, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just that the heat dries it out real nice. I don't know, but this is really drying up beautifully.
Jesus, I cry over everything. Well, this is worth crying over.
Look at it, baby.
Nice, it's holding you.
This is Lena, baby Lena, the youngest pilot to enter this year's Nats. Lena Borelli.
The youngest pilot.
The youngest Borelli ever to enter the Nats.
Comfortable shoes.
We're here at the Borelli factory of airplanes, and instead of making a plane this year,
oh yeah, he didn't stop making a
plane. Yeah, through the magic of video, through the absolute magic of Wendy's videos, you have miraculously transported yourself out to Huntington Station, Long Island, and the new, soon-to-be renovated workshop of Jim Borelli and baby Lena. Actually, look at these now. Tell a story about these. These are, you and Joey are making twin planes?
Well, they're going to be similar, but not the same.
Okay.
They're basically Magnum kits.
Okay.
He'll probably stay with the conventional look at a Magnum. I've decided that I'm going to change the appearance. But it's primarily just Magnums.
It's just cosmetic stuff anyway.
And these, we've changed most of the wood from the kit.
Yeah.
And these
you got
fuselages,
nice outlets. Turn this one over so I can see this one up on the tape. Oh, you got the Strager kind of outlet.
Strager outlet.
Yeah, Ooh, that's
like the cardinal.
nice cowl, yeah, I like that shape.
Like the cardinal cowl.
Beautiful.
You know, the Big Jim Nose construction.
Oh, yeah, nothing beats that Big Jim Nose. I don't care what anybody says.
You can look.
I just read in Stunt News how you don't need heavy-duty nose construction. I think I'm gonna just rip mine right out. I think I'll just get a saw and cut it all right out. And this is the tuner that you've been working on.
Yeah.
Now this, Jimmy, tell them the story. I already heard this story, but let's see if you can see this on the macro lens here.
Right.
It really is a full finish. It's really a nicely...
It's a complete suit, don't finish. And I wanted to do it light. I wanted to learn how to do it light. So I took the plane, I built it, and...
That's kind of a little test bed to do finishing stuff on.
Little test bed. The finish with the clear on it came out to 4 ounces.
And this is a legit 4 ounce, this is not a bullshit 4 ounce finish, this is a real 4 ounce finish.
Yeah.
Well, you got an awful lot of people that tell you it's 4 ounce, and you pick the plane up, it feels like it's glued to the floor or something. And this is the old Misty here, the one we fixed the fillet on?
Yeah.
Stripped down?
All stripped down.
Yeah, that kind of Cobra rudder.
Right.
That'll be a miracle plane when you get 10 ounces off of that.
Yeah.
That'll be one of those, why didn't I do this originally jobs?
Let me ask you something. You know, because actually what I wanted to do is I wanted to strip it down, even we'll take the paper off.
Yeah.
I got room to sit.
You can take the paper off.
Well, what do you recommend?
Sure, we'll do some right now. I'll show you how to get it right off. No problem at all.
I've gotten some off here.
We'll do the bottom of the tail. We'll take the bottom of the tail. Wait till Joey gets in. Use it for a little demo.
Okay, sounds great.
We can take, I'll show you how I got mine off anyway.
Yeah. Because I can sand some of the wood here.
Yeah.
Make it
I mean, underneath all that paint was a beautiful, that's like the Richie Tower thing. Richie had that 24 ounce plane, beautiful plane, and he went home and painted it, and it was, turned it into a lamp, you know. It was heavy. This is nice. I like the calendar. That's the original Misty?
The original Misty.
Yeah.
Ron Kahn sent me that calendar. He had it made for me.
Yeah. I was just, you know, it's funny, I was just watching I made a copy of the Nats videos, the old Nats, where this plane is in the video.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't even remember.
91.
Was it 91?
That was 91.
I was making up the, yeah, that's right, because we were out in,
Yeah, and here's my article that I wrote up for Stunt News on that plane.
Boy, this shop is coming out nice, boy.
Yeah.
This is a lot nicer than one. The last time I saw it, I don't remember what was different.
Well, I painted everything.
Oh, you got it all painted a light color, yeah.
It used to be the wood paneling color.
These are gonna be nice.
Here's all my tapes.
Oh, the full collection of Windy Vit. This'll ensure longevity. Mr. Potato Head. Who is this, Midgley and Big Jim over there? Now see, if you don't have as many tapes as this, you can't really expect to succeed in life. Your marriage will fall apart. You'll get fat at 50. Look at this, he's got all these Strager tapes, Nats tapes, oh, Spitfire tapes. What a guy. Hey, I just got that sander for Christmas. Oh, you got the same thing. Oh, no, yours is different. Mine, this is a bigger belt on mine. I got that for quitting. Boy, that thing works beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Adam Musko embarrassed me into getting it. You got the good jigsaw, the 16-inch one. Oh, man, look at this. The towel holder, the Ruffy. Hey, we didn't see the Ruffy.
That's the Dolphin.
The Dolphin. Oh, looks like a Ruffy.
That's, Walt Olman actually built that.
Oh, that's nice.
But he cheated on the motor mounts.
Oh, no. He didn't do one of those rubber nose
I
constructions.
checked it out. He cheated on.
Oh, God.
So that's going bye-bye.
Yeah, that's an ashtray now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be fighting a motor run forever. This is nice. This is definitely going to be a nice color. The pilots even match.
Oh, yeah. Well, Rena painted them.
Really?
Yeah, Rena painted the
You
pilot.
should have made Joey's pilot bald like we did to Stifle. Get in there with some Q-tips and alcohol and get his head.
We did that while Stifle was away on vacation. Yeah, the shop looks great. Amazing. Looks good. Well, what is, these are the Magnum Wings?
This is Magnum Wings.
Did you use the cores that they give you, or
Yeah,
use the cores they give you, you replace the sheeting?
yeah, all the sheeting's replaced.
Yeah, okay. And the gear are going in the fuselage, no gear blocks?
Now I'm gonna put the gear blocks in.
Okay.
I don't have to reinforce them. That's the only drawback, but I want the gear mount.
I would put that plywood in there. I see some one of yous already has it, and just in case, when you gotta fly at the circle on the field or something,
Yeah.
you don't have to do it.
Joey's going with the fuselage gear.
Yeah. Because that plywood doesn't hurt anything. That'd be in there, and put a little cowl, make a little foam, dummy cowling over it.
Well,
That doesn't hurt anything at all.
these are light. These are gonna come out about 9.5 ounces when it's finished, which isn't too shabby.
No, and you got real plywood in there, you didn't use the dollhouse wood, or what did you use, real plywood, huh?
Everything is, yeah, we sanded everything.
Yeah.
The plywood goes right past the trailing edge.
Good. Joey has that thing of those, the modifications to do.
Wait a minute, I wanna know the whole story,
I'm out here
okay?
about 8 o'clock every Saturday morning,
Now look, you copied this idea from me, you copied it from Scotsman.
and when I get here, he says I'm late.
You're late, no matter what time you get, let's see, what does it say, no worries.
This help was
Hakuna Matata. Oh,
my
man.
secretary at work, yeah. Nice.
Hakuna Matata.
So anyway, I get here 8 o'clock in the morning. I gotta get up at 6 to get here. And when I get here, he says, "You're late."
And Jimmy works him like he's a mule.
And he locks me in the room and gives me a sanding block. I had to work. 8 o'clock at night, I'm walking at it.
And then do they feed you during that time?
Debbie always feeds me.
Oh, yeah, you get food, you get beer, did she let you have a beer during?
I got rum and cokes all day long.
Rum and Cokes, rum, Cokes, and Magnums.
I'll tell you though, they're coming out great. This
They are looking good.
It's really good.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna mold those parts, Joe. I'm gonna make a mold for a Magnum, so the next one,
Sure.
if Lenny or anybody makes a Magnum, we'll have molded parts.
Hey, mine's a good plan.
None of that carving and sanding bullshit, that's gotta go. That is definitely good. Hey, by the way, if you don't know, let's see open the window a little bit, Jim. We're in the middle of a hurricane over here.
Look at the trees blowing around. Oh my God, you can't even see this. Now, you can't see it, the screen is...
The screen where I can't help it.
Oh, forget it, it's really blowing up a storm now, holy mackerel.
The snow is melting.
The snow's melting, yeah, anyway. Beautiful day. A beautiful day out in the Borelli workshop here.
But it's warm inside where the Magnums are. Oh, man. Hey, let's eat. You said you had cold cuts?
Yeah, let's go get the cold.
Oh, yeah, let's do cold cuts. Oh boy, through the magic of video, you get to share not only Jimmy's the baby's shower, this Magnum studio here. Oh my God! Hey, this is a nice workshop though. Look at the carpeting. Guy's got a nicer work. Look at a vacuum. He's out windy here. Okay, now what's the deal? You burning a plane?
Yeah, a crashed plane.
Who's burning a plane? Hey, how come I'm not in this picture?
See the hats?
Yeah.
And Mike Savino,
They actually set the plane
Steve
on fire.
Borelli.
You
The
guys
Black
are
Cat
bad.
was the name of the plane. The Black Cat.
Hey, there's a good-looking guy. Look at that putz. Holy man. What was that? That's 93, yeah. The tweener, yeah. What else you got? The Joker here? Lampion, he's a joker, all right. Some group shots. Here's Ron. I thought you guys were better looking than this.
This is Arizona.
Where?
Over here. Tucson.
You guys are bad. Who's this? Oh, Hakuna Matata over there. Hey, there's my wife.
Look at
Hey.
Look at the snow shadow up on the left there. This is Dave Cook's backyard.
Oh, yeah. Where's Dave? There's Ron and Helen.
I think Dave took the picture.
Oh, yeah, we got another one down here. I remember this day. Didn't we take some pictures when John DeTavio was cooking?
I don't have that here.
The old Misty? It's a lot of good memories here.
There's Lenny over here on the right.
Where's Lenny? Is he going to be down today? Oh, yeah. Cardinal King Lenny. Is he building anything?
He's building one of your planes, a Cardinal.
Oh, good man. A good choice. Be politically correct. Build a Cardinal. Look at
Does
that.
this come out clear, Peggy?
Yeah, it comes out fine. Oh, great. And then Jimmy's got a private little trophy room here too, except we got to move all the furniture to... Hey, who's this fat guy? Oh, that's you, Joe.
Oh, those.
You can't get in a good position because he's got so much furniture.
You gotta admit, Joe, we have had a good time in the hobby. There's old Ron with the old plane. The James. That was from the 91 Nats, I remember that. Big Art. Art, you're okay. I don't care what Borelli says about you. Hey, there's a good-looking guy. Look at that. There you go, second place, man. You should have won. This guy didn't deserve to win. Boo! Boo! Look at these guys. Oh my God, that was a good year. We did have fun, I gotta admit it. Hard to believe we had all this fun. And look at this, I'm talking about trophies. Look at all this stuff. This is the wall of honor over here. Beer steins and trophies. Picture of his new baby. Hey, Pop! Ah, Bill Plains here, Pots. Look at this. Look at these cute little things he's got. Yeah, I got one of these from Gerald Champ. Similar to that. Cute little model. I got it in my training room right now. And of course the old timer down here. Nats winning old timer. Balloons. Oh man, I'll tell you. Well, he's got more. Hey Joe, when he's not looking, put some of this. I made a wine shelf in my living room for my Spitfire books, but I don't have enough wine. DeJulia, send me some more wine. Now, if I had friends like Steve DeJulia, they'd send me some bottles of nice Italian wine. Seriously, I need to fill that wine shelf up. I only got 2 bottles of wine left. Look at Jimmy went out and got all new furniture just for us today. I'll tell you, what a day it is out. Hey, nice windstar. Anyway, through the magic of video, you can share our meal. Actually, we weren't going to, this is funny, we weren't going to have anything to eat till Lampione got here. Screw him. We're going to eat now. Bobby might not even make it the way that wind is blowing. Now we're finally back in the shop. Oh man, the weather out there. This is the year of the weather. Anyway, I wanted to thank Bob Lampione. He gave me this belated Christmas present, and he said it's good luck. It's a good luck Spitfire hat. Anyway, very nice of him to do that. He also loaned me this book to read. Got to show this up on the video. A couple of the little parts of this. Now I have a little bit of time. I'm expecting people to come over today. And boy, we did have a great time out by Jimmy's, and I certainly congratulate him on a beautiful baby. Had a great shower, great time. But it's back to Spitfireville. And one of the things I want to do today, and I don't know how much time I have a very limited amount of time here. These are the roundels that Joe made Xerox copies of, and I want to make up from my colored paper, that colored artwork paper, some paper thickness evasion stripes. And what this lets me do is lay out, let's make an example up. I can put the roundels out there, I can put the roundels here, I can look at the pictures that I have. And again, this is why I've been really aggressive about saving and looking at all these pictures. I can make those evasion stripes a little thicker, a little thinner. I can line them up with cap strips, make them offset. Now, one of the things I want to do, Joe had laid out a wingtip with a roundel already on it, so one of the things I wanted to do is simulate that, kind of use his measurements for the roundels, and then lay out. I have to make 5 stripes, 3 red ones and 2 black ones, and I don't know the thickness here, so usually the easiest way that I know to do this would be, let me get out one of these great old rulers. Again, no matter if you're doing a Cardinal or an SV11 or what, it's nice to be able to lay out the paint job before you actually commit. Now, we have roughly 15 inches of invasion stripes. So we need 5 stripes. It means the stripes are going to be 3 inches each. So what I'm going to do is, let me put this over here. And again, this is just to lay it out, is have this craft paper. And this, by the way, this is like $2 for all this paper. A good idea here is I'll make up some 3-inch stripes out of black paper and out of white paper, and I can lay them out. For instance, I may want to make the first stripe 3 1/4, then make it 2 7/8. I want to have that look like the pictures in the Spitfire book where the invasion stripes almost come out to the roundels. So I'll do this off camera. I'm going to make up some various thicknesses of black and white stripes. And I could even actually, one of the things I can do is make the roundels up in color so I can get a little look at just about what that's going to look like when it's finished. Now this is another option I have, and I'm going to cut this one out. This is one of Joe Adamusco's templates for laying out exactly where the roundel goes. I can line up the flap hinge line. Again, if you've watched the tweener and the cardinal videos, you know I always have patterns, because once you make up a pattern, you can flip it over and do the other side. If you're trying to do this by eye, it always comes out somehow looking a little, I don't know, horse's ass is not the right word, but I just want to see if the roundel, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to cut this roundel out, and then this will be my template for lining up the roundels. Now, of course, the roundels are different on the top and the bottom. The bottom ones have an outline of yellow. The top ones are just a red and a blue circle. This looks like it's going to position it well. Now, what I'm going to do is take this piece, cut the outside out of blue, the inside out of red, and actually make a roundel. Then I'll use this for a template for lining it up. I can put that right in position, take this out. Then when I go to do the other wing, it'll be in exactly the right position. And I can evaluate this, look at this, and say, gee, do I like that? Yeah, is it big enough, small enough, whatever. But this does look about right. Now, by taking a book, what I'm trying to envision, and I'm not putting it in position, I want to see that the red part relative to the blue part is roughly the right size. Relative to how this is, this looks, and Joe has made these templates real, they look real accurate, in fact, look real nice. So I guess I can go ahead and cut this out of the blue and red paper. Now you can see I'm using Joe's actual pattern here. Okay, now one of the things, I have that compass that Ed Gallagher sent, and I'm going to fool with that later and try to figure out what is the easiest way to do it. Ed sent a note with some tips and things. And, you know, I really appreciate when people take the time and the energy to share this project with us. I probably have said that enough times that you're sick of hearing it, but it really is a nice, adds a nice dimension to it. It's certainly a lot nicer than working on something, knowing that nobody else in the world really cares about how it's coming out. I think we're kind of sharing a neat thing here that's evolving, and especially so many people that have sent stuff in. It's been fun just reading the literature. Now, the idea of having this stuff is we're not making a scale model. If this was a scale model, this would be so easy. You just do this, make the pattern, photo enlarge it, boom, that's what it would be. But we're looking for the illusion. I want the illusion. This is not a scale wing. The illusion that it's a Spitfire. If the roundel is too far to the side, too far to the back, the front, or if they're not equal, there's a lot of potential mistakes, and I don't want to make any of them. I want this to be as good as I possibly can make it. Now I have to cut, by the way, this is a good way to do this when you want to make templates either for cardinals or whatever. Templates are templates. Molds are molds. Patterns are patterns. And what I'll do is I'll save all these patterns. I'm going to put them in the Spitfire box when I'm done. So let's suppose in Bob Martens or somebody else someday wants to use them, they'll be available. There's nothing wrong if you're satisfied with just slapping on some masking tape and making some stripes and not really caring if the wings are equal and things. These are the things, and there's a poem I can remember from being a kid, and I don't even remember the poem, but I remember the punchline of the poem is, "The gods see everywhere." And you know what it is? I see everywhere. Now I know if I look at Joe's plane and these roundels are all crooked or something, or not in the right spot, I'm going to notice it, and I'm sure if he looks at mine, he's going to know, and he's going to say, boy, that Windy, what an idiot. Can't put the roundels in the right spot. But it wouldn't matter, because even if you were making arrowheads or making a midgley paint job or something, it doesn't matter. You'd like to get it as good as possible. Now, the idea of doing this in full scale is now I can put this out on the plane. It takes 2 or 3 minutes to do this, and I can get a look at what is this really going to look like when the whole plane is finished. By the way, Adamusco, this tape thing works great. Okay, so obviously I want to get this as close to the middle as I possibly can. And of course we have a template to line it up. This is what's nice about working with a guy like Joe. He's fussy. Things that he does that are his part of the development project are right on the money every time. Well, Bob Martens with his plans. Those plans, by the way, are unbelievable. That's the best. End of discussion. Best set of plans I've ever seen, period. Okay, there's a little bit of a sharp spot here I want to trim off. See, so now I've spent 10, 15 extra minutes and I have almost what would be a painted roundel ready to put on the plane. You just take a couple little chunks of tape rolled up into a circle, and now I can position this on the wing in a lot of spots, make sure I have it exactly where I want it, check it, reference it to the book, and I'll have this one in the bank. Now I can line this up. And even just by looking at this, I'm sure you can get some good ideas about things you can do to, standard paint jobs. Now I can get rid of the pattern, and I can see, do I like it there? Now, one of the choices I have, when I go into my book and I look at the book, I may say, gee, it's a little too far back. Let me get that picture again. Now, here's one of the roundels that I'm looking at. I can look at the roundel here and see, gee, now a couple of things I want to look at. I want to see how close the stripes actually come out to the roundels. That's what I'm really looking at. There's 5 individual bars. I'm going to start with roughly with a 3-inch stripe. I'll cut up some 3-inch stripes. But then I want to look at this picture and look at my pattern, and I can make more pattern. Now here's a little tip I know you can do. Whenever you lay out your trim, let's suppose you were even going to have arrowheads like a cardinal or whatever, or stars. Always lay the trim out just a little bit bigger than you think you're going to want it. The reason for this is now you put it in place, oh yeah, it's too big, I can shave this, shave that, shave here. If you make it too small, it's hard to make it bigger. If you make it a little bit too big, it's easy to make it smaller. So I want to lay out the trim. One of the things I want to do is lay out the trim. I really want to wind up with about 3-inch stripes. So I'm going to lay this out just for my own, sake of argument, 3 1/8, let's say. That'll eventually be a little bit too big, and then I can trim it down to the final spec that I want. In fact, I'm going to make sure with my eyesight, I marked a ruler so I don't screw this up. Now the stripes are going to be longer than the actual paper, so what I'll do is just cut several of them and tape them together. I really only need 2 black stripes, so I'll cut 3 and then make 1 out of the 2. Now, of course, part 2 of this, and this is just ordinary pattern making technology. Nothing special here. You can use the first stripe to set the second one in place. Then when we're all done, we can run a 48-inch ruler down the edge of it. Oh, we get 3 out of 1 piece here. How convenient. And a lot of times you only have to see this kind of stuff once. This can now be the scrap piece. You see this and you get the idea in your mind. Or as Joe Kay would say, the approach. And once you have the approach, the rest is easy. The rest is a piece of cake. Now with all these black and white stripes, I can just lay it out and make a tentative plan, and then I can see how much do I want to cut off of these. I know I've made these oversized. Probably going to have to trim each one. But how much do I want to trim it? I'd like to have it as much like the look of that plane in the book as possible. Now it looks like I have to make it just, in fact, you know how I can do this? 15 3/4 and 13. So I can measure this picture even. I can look at the picture and get an idea of how much. More than half is invasion stripes. Even so, this does look a little bit large. Yeah, that does look a little, I'm thinking I'll take a 1/4 inch, that'll bring it down to 2 7/8. These are 3 1/8 now. I'll make them 2 7/8. So I'll strip each one. That'll bring this down quite a bit, and then I'll look at it again. I can always go back. I can always make more stripes, but this is why, this is one of the things you would never want to lay out ahead of time and not see it in full scale. If you painted these stripes on now and pull up the tape, say, oh, too big, too big. Okay, let's go back and thin them down. A lot easier to thin out this paper than to sand all that paint off, or worse yet, just live with it. Now I marked the ruler here to how much I'm stripping off. I'm stripping off a little over 1/8 and less than 1/4 here, because I think I'm going to wind up even smaller, but I'll take a little bit each time until I get these stripes. Remember, it's that illusion that I want. It's not a measured thing. I want that illusion. When you stand back, I want people to look at it and say, ah, Spitfire. Because it can't be scale. If it was scale, it isn't going to fly. Now with the stripped down pieces, each time I lay this out, I can reference back to the book or whatever picture. Or even if you were doing, a normal airplane, you can be manipulating the trim to get that look that's in your mind's eye without having to go back and do the paint work over and over and over and over. It's a lot easier to do this than it is to go repainting and sanding and many times I've done it and said, gee, why didn't I lay it all out? Because what was done wasn't what I had in mind. Now I can take the picture, hold the picture right up to it. That looks real close. That looks real close. Now the thing I'm looking at here, it looks like it's exactly or just a little less than half of the span, and the roundel is almost over there touching, and there's quite a bit of tip showing. So let me see what I have. If I stand back and I look at the picture, it looks like I have, actually it looks like they're still a little bit too big. I'm going to take another 1/8 of an inch off of them, and then if I've gone too far, I can just add an 1/8 inch back. I'll make a new set of stripes, but kind of redundant thing from this point on. Now I'm referencing off the photograph, and I'm trying to do this in a very inexact way, but just slightly more of the wing is camo than invasion stripes. So what I'm doing, I'm measuring up here. I got 15 inches of camo and 14 in it. I'm going to take another 1/8 inch off each stripe. That's the final decision here, and then live with it. But that's the only way I know of that I can get to. And actually, from looking at this, it looks like the roundels could be just a tad bigger too. So again, if I have to, isn't it a lot easier to make up a new pattern than to go crazy and have to repaint this? The stripes should be a little smaller, the roundels a little bigger. That's my opinion right now looking at this picture. Now I'm leaving that original tape line on there. This may seem like it's a little bit of an overkill thing, but for me it isn't. I like to get this perfect before I ever put a piece of tape down on a plane. I want to know what this is going to look like. I don't want to take one chance in 1,000 that I'm going to be unmasking this and redoing it, and because I've already made that mistake. Once you make this mistake, it doesn't take a lot of, it's like slamming your hand in a car door. It's the kind of thing you generally don't do more than once a lifetime. And I have rushed out and taped out whole planes thinking, oh, hurry up. Yeah, I got to get this plane done. Spring is coming. And then been sorry as hell when I saw what the final product looked like, and wished I would have made up, an hour or two of patterns. You can do this, and I'm doing this on a day that obviously I'm not going to get a whole lot done today, but I can go back and forth. Then I can come back tomorrow or the next day or the next session and take a look at this again and see, how do I like that? Lay it on the ground, put it 70 feet away, put it on a table, I get a lot of choices this way before I ever have to commit, or ever even have to put a piece of tape on the airplane. You know, at first glance you look at this and you may be thinking, oh, this is a simple paint job. You know, this is probably one of the most difficult paint jobs to get if you really want to get it right. You really have to go back and forth. You just can't slap on things without having that look. It takes 1/8 of an inch to change that look, and all of a sudden the thing is too wide or too thin or whatever. Now what I'm going to do, I want to look at this from a lot of different angles. First of all, line them up. That looks real good. Now that's the look. There we are. Okay, now the only thing that's wrong is the roundel. With these stripes here, the roundel looks a little bit too small. So what I'm going to do is take the roundel off. I can save this roundel, of course, and I'll make one 1/8 of an inch bigger. I'll just add 1/8 of an inch all around this. Now I want to go roughly, again, I'll make this a little bit bigger than necessary. Roughly a 1/4 inch bigger. This is Ed Gallagher's compass. Make sure I'm on the paper. No, I'm not. And it's got a little maybe I'll show this on the camera. It says a little razor blade on one side, and Ed being Ed the painter, he calls himself. Ed, you're okay. Okay, what Adamusco says about you. Let's see how this works. I should have done this off camera a few times, get familiar with it. This looks like it works okay. Gotta hold it straight up and down, which I didn't the first time around. I'm going over newspaper. Okay, now when I tried to lay the blade down, it didn't work so good, so. Okay, learn as you go. Let's go back. Hold the blade straight up and down, Wendy. Okay. You see, this is, I don't want to poke myself here. A little razor blade on one end, the point, of course, and a little knife blade on the other end that goes right into the compass. That's cool. Now, of course, I want to make the middle just a little bigger here. So let's see if we've learned our lesson here. Hold it straight up and down. I didn't press hard enough here. Okay, now I'll obviously now tape these center to center. Now I've got one just a little bit bigger. Now if it's too big, guess what I can do? Just shrink it down. But all this stuff, believe me, this all adds up in the final product. When you look at something and you say, wow, that's really nice. Like when you look at just things that I've looked at, Adamusco's Bucks Deluxe, and seen some of the nice little detail work on it. Ski Dombrowski's plane. Ted Fancher's plane always has extra little details in it. Beautifully done. Okay, now I like the bigger roundels. The position is a little bit different now. I've put them in a different position, so I can't really use the original template. The invasion stripes look just about right. The roundels look close. I think I'm going to take 1/8 inch off of the roundels, and that's it. Okay, now from looking back and forth at all these pictures, you can see the roundels come almost to the front of the wing and almost touch. And they're probably a little too far out yet. I still haven't put the final position on, but when I do, what I'll do is I'll make a pattern so I can lay them out. And if I don't want to make a pattern, I can reference it this way to the tip and to the hinge line. That'll be the easiest way to do it. Again, just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. This is the way. When I get one wing panel just the way I want it, and I'm real happy with it, then I can start cutting out the templates. Now here I want to measure this out. I have roughly and a little less than 10 inches. I want to have the invasion stripes go, start at the end of the fillet and end here. That's about 9 7/8. So I'll make them just under 2 inches each, and that'll fill that portion up. Now for the side of the fuselage, what I did, I laid out 2-inch invasion stripes just to get a rough idea if this is going to be the size I want, because I have to include the roundel in on this. So I have to really lay two things out at once here. I got this all marked off on the paper with dots. So I have one piece of paper with the striping. Now I can lay this up and I can position the roundel. Now this will be my pattern for the side of the fuselage, just a rough pattern. In fact, let me tack this in position and I can work up. Since I haven't made the roundels yet, I don't know the position of them. Again, I need to do a little interpolation because I need to figure out about where that roundel is going to wind up going. Now there's just, now keep in mind what we have here. If this was a scale fuselage, the wing would be much narrower. Because the wing would be narrower, the first stripe would be closer to the canopy. Well, we don't have that choice. The wing is wider, and we have to kind of do this in a mind's eye view now. So that piece will not have an invasion stripe, and now I'll have to position a roundel somewhere out here, and I'll still leave room for those squadron markings. Now this is pretty much a view of the side. And I'm just roughing this out now. And this gives me an idea of how big I can make the roundel. Almost goes from the full top to the bottom, the yellow part of it, so I'm going to try to adjust the compass here. And of course I'll make more than one. I'll make it a little bit big to start with, and make it even a little bit bigger. I can start laying this out. Okay, now just roughly looking at the picture, coming down. Now I know the next circle has to be blue. I can shrink this down and just get an idea. If anything, I want the yellow to be bigger than it normally would be to give the illusion. Okay, now with that in mind, I can take this away, push the book away, get out a piece of the blue. Now I can lay this out. I guess everybody can figure out all the steps from this point on. I'm up with the first white stripe. I'd like to be even with that. A little bit further into it. Oh, won't matter. This really won't matter. This is not the part that's going to matter. Okay, I need to have a white piece now. The white piece needs to be the thickness of, roughly of that. Well, let me do this again by eye. Okay, now I can take this away, get some white paper. Again, this is what allows me to mock this up in full size and see what it's going to look like. And I may want to make one size thicker, one thinner. Now, needless to say, if we were doing decals, this would all be nothing, you know. But we're not doing decals. This is all going to be paint. Now, I want to make it roughly, I'm trying to interpolate the size of that, which would roughly be that. Now we can just do a little mock-up here of make the little loops of tape. It's really, really handy to be able to see this in full size and almost in the colors it'll be before we actually go mix and paint. Now, it wouldn't mean you couldn't do this if you were doing any kind of trim design. You could color paper out any trim at all.
Now I can look at that and look at the book and see if I've got it, if I'm close, if I'm not so close. Look around. I'm not going to bother laying out the lettering now. That's a final thing. That'll go on top of the other paint. But I want to lay this out. I want to lay the stripes out. This is what I want to be able to paint on the sides of the fuselage now. Something similar to that. Now there I have pretty much laid out those two intricate pieces. Now I want to make the piece up, the little insignia that goes on the rudder, the little like flag insignia. And let's see, might be able to even get some of this masked off today. You never can tell.
Again, I'm trying to use my book for a scale reference. And I'm just cutting up what amounts to be little paper dolls here. Make them oversized to begin with, and then trim them until the illusion is what you want. I'm trying to get that stripe in the right proportion. It's really thinner than it looks like, too. Okay. This is just to mock it up. Actually, the more complex a paint job is, the more... I know Midgley made those really detailed layouts of his Aries before he did the Aries, and it really paid off. Okay, now this is ready to go up. Trim this with a triangle, and then we have to cut that in for the rudder. And then this will allow me to go over. I think if you only have to see this technique once, and you could really come up with some pretty exotic, we don't even care about that, pretty exotic. And we've got all the basic trim done here in one session, one real quick session. In fact, we may even have time. I keep thinking it's nice outside. I can get some spraying done. Anyway, now I'm just trying to put a rough line on here, ever so rough, so I can use that for alignment. Now I've walked around, flipped around, looked at this from a lot of different angles, and I feel like I'm real close to having what I want here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have me a cup of coffee and then come down and get ready to put some masking tape on this guy. Now what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to use this. This is 1/4 inch tape because this is a 1/4 inch fillet, and get a nice even edge that'll be parallel to the fuse side here. You sometimes got to go back and forth. Usually I have 1/4 inch masking tape, I just don't have any in stock right now. And what this does, this establishes a parallel line away from the fuselage. I can lose this now. What I did, took one of the invasion stripes and carefully cut 3 little holes in it, put tape on it. So this lets this stay in position now. And now I can line this up with the flap. I can get a pretty accurate alignment here, so to speak. Now remember, here's the reason I have to be real careful, is this is going around a curve and a taper. So this is why I'm using this yellow tape. I want to line that up, and now I'm going to run my tape along here. And notice that I'm taping up the wing and the flap at the same time, so I get what I hope is going to be a nice true line. I don't want to have the flap and this off to one side. Now there's one step that I can use to make this real easy on myself. I know that when I put the black stripes in, I'm going to back mask them. So what I need to do is take out the thickness of the tape on each side, and in this case I can do it in one cut because I can put the tape on one side. I could obviously do this by measuring, but I like to do it with the tape itself. Now the black stripes, because if I'm going to be backmasking them, the black stripes I need to just take out. Just take the 1/4 inch off, and then I can mask these out, and they'll be in perfect position. Okay, if you follow through with that, if you didn't take this out, the one stripes would be a 1/4 inch wider than the other one. So thinking this through and planning out, remember that schedule thing I talked about? This is part of figuring out how you're going to do this. It's nothing exotic, you just have to have a plan. Now by taking that off, then this will now be my pattern. Even another reason to have it. Make a couple of holes in the pattern so you can have the purpose for that is the tape can hold it in position. And I want to do it right across the flap and everything all at once.
Now you can see if we lay out this stripe, now it should be that we have the 1/8 inch tape right there. Pretty scientific, huh? I can just hear people out in video land. That windy. Boy, what an idiot. Anyway, these are the little things that make it not only possible, practical, but accurate. And if you can pick up all these little tips, great. Now once I have that piece out, now I can measure, where the hell's my white stripe? Because I want these to be the same thickness, I can just verify that I haven't left out one step, and that this will be inside to inside when I backmask it. Now remember, because this is a double wrap, it's not going to stay even on one side. You have to really do a little interpolation on this. I'm leaving the tape hanging off a little bit. Just leave it oversized up at the front. I can adjust all the tape at the front at one time. Now this will be the next black stripe. The black stripe has the minus the tape, so we can just do a real close alignment on this. And what it does now, we can just bingo and grind out the stripes. We have the patterns made. We know this is all going to be parallel. And you could use the same technology if you were going to repeat some kind of a repeatable pattern, stars, bars, whatever. Now I know the last one is. Once I get this one on, then I can flip it over and do the bottom. And I'll know the bottom is right because all the tapes will match, or they should match. And by backmasking where the black is, I won't have double paint, even though I don't think that's going to be real significant. I originally didn't think I was even going to do that, but I figured, what the heck? Hey, let's impress Mike Rogers, we'll go all the way here. Okay, now I should have all the patterns on. I can save, just put the patterns away. The wide stripes, this will be the white, white, and white. Black and black, and when I pull up the tape and reverse the tape, the black will be the same size as the white. I can just do a double check, and it's always good to double check. This will be over the tape, under the tape, over the tape, under the tape. Now one of the double checks you have is that we're parallel to the cap strips. Because of that angle, you really can't make a perfect 2-inch stripe is just going to bend. So, but that looks real good. We're looking for our alignment pieces in the front. That looks like a go. We'll flip it over and just repeat the whole thing on the bottom. I can just really trim these right in the middle here, because I'm going to have to put tape around the trailing edge and around the leading edge of the flap. I can just slice these right here. Okay, now I have to put the gear block in here. I want it to line up where that paint's going to go across. I'm not going to do the radiators at this time. I can be doing radiators while this is drying. The radiators will have the same stripe too. But I want to look from the front, make sure everything looks straight. I'll do this part here, get this side taped off, and then I can get the aluminum foil around here, and this will probably be ready to paint today. Hey, pretty cool. Okay, I got the basic outline here of all the invasion stripes. Now what I want to do, the next thing, I want to pull the flaps off, because that'll give me some working room on the side of the fuse, and I can get the aluminum foil masked off on the flaps here, so I'll be another step ahead on that. Now what I'm doing is just adding a little piece of tape right around the front, because these pieces obviously don't match when you cut it, and I want to make sure I'm perfectly straight around the trailing edge here. Now I always take, when I'm going to actually put that tape down on paper, rub it on a flannel shirt or the table or both, and try to just leave, you know, 1/8 of an inch or so of the tape sticking out. When you do the foil job, you get an idea. Just a little bit sticks out, not a whole lot. And now I can just back mask everything that's not going to be white on this flap. And I really almost only have the tape touching the tape. Very little of it actually touches the silver. Now another thing you don't want to have is, you don't want to squeeze this down. You'll put little dents in the wood. Just leave it kind of loose, that's fine. That'll keep everything nice and clean. Now one good trick you can use when backmasking, assuming you have some of the basic techniques down pat. And this, by the way, let's give full credit to Walt Prey. This was his technology of backmasking with aluminum foil, not mine. But it works well. Okay, now I'll get one side on. Just work one side. And as I get up here, I can just, the foil can be up. The foil doesn't have to be an exact fit. You see how it can be a little bit bigger, and you can just press it down. Now you have a perfect fit all in one shot. You can wrap this around, line it right up. Boy, this is a great trick for taping off. Now you have this up here, the hell with it, who cares? Seal the edge, seal the edge. Alright, so just with the scissor, just get rid of this and tape it up. No paint will get in there, it's perfect.
something from another world. And when the light came back, this weird plant was just sitting there. Just, you know... No, that's my mama's problem. Oh, mama.
Now after getting most of the aluminum on, I want to get the gear blocks out. I want to paint them separately, of course, so that I can paint inside. Of course, that'll fuel-proof inside where the blocks are, and I want to get all the edges. And this ensures that you'll get the correct line on there. It'll match up when the block goes back in. We're almost at the end of this tape, and I'm just trying to see if I can get this all masked off. But obviously I'm going to run out of tape here, so we're going to pick this up on the next tape. And I'm just getting around whatever I can here of getting everything masked off. I'm going to paint this whole bar white, all of these bars white, and then that'll have to sit overnight to dry. Okay, obviously that paint that we mixed up last week is still in the gun. We'll give it a shake. Now the first thing I'm going to do is seal all these edges with some clear, little thin brush, and one coat of clear right along the edges, and I'll get out there and get some of these painted today. Now we're unfortunately at the end of this tape. I'm not even going to get any of the actual painting on this tape. But I'll finish this session on the next tape. I have everything masked off, and I'm ready. Spitfires.